Alrighty. Welcome everybody to Crowdfunding Comics. We talk about comic books, crowdfunding them, and building your platform to do so. Today we got Mark Poulton on the show. Thanks for joining me, Mark.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Mark started out, and we'll get into his origin story and everything, but he's worked with Rob Liefeld. He's written for Hawkman on his crowdfunding campaigns. The ones he's ran, he has raised over $165,000, and then he's also part of the Graveyard Shift franchise, I guess you could call it. That's raised close to $1 million in crowdfunding uh, uh, proceeds, not proceeds, but, funds. But, yeah, thanks again for joining me, and I guess, to start off, let's get into a little bit of your origin story, before crowdfunding really, like, how did you kinda get into comics? And 'cause like I mentioned, you did start, or not start maybe, but, you worked with Rob Liefeld and, worked on some DC stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was always a huge comic book fan. GI Joe was my gateway to comic books. I loved the cartoon. I loved the toys. When I realized, they made comic books too, I had to track them down, and I started reading them. And then it just grew to other comics like Spider-Man, X-Men, and then like the '90s happened, and superstar artists like Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, like really captivated me, and that's when I realized I wanted to make comic books. But I really had no idea how to make comic books. Like I knew how to write them, and you know find someone to draw them, but to actually like get them published and get them out there was a mystery for me, to the point where I shifted gears. And
Oh, okay.
I started writing screenplays, because at the same time, like the late '90s, guys like Kevin Smith, Robert
Yeah.
Rodriguez, they were like creating their own films, and they made it sound like anyone can do this. Like
Mhm.
they wrote books saying this is how we did it, and you can do
Yeah.
it too.
I was
And
gonna mention that I think Robert Rodriguez wrote that book for, like, making a indie film for, like, $7,000 or something
yeah,
like that?
yeah, Rebel Without a Crew.
Yeah.
It's my favorite book I ever read. Very inspiring, and I was like, oh, I'm going to just follow his like him and Kevin Smith, their game plan. And I wrote a screenplay, and I sent it out to all the production companies in Hollywood, all the agents, and all of them passed on it. But one agent did say, so the screenplay I wrote was called Undercover High, and basically 21 Jump Street, but an updated version, not the funny.
Okay.
Not the funny version, but like the serious Johnny Depp version that I grew up loving. And s- uh, 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 agent said, "Yo, no one's ever going to make this movie because Columbine had just happened."
Oh, wow, okay.
And he says, "But I can tell you, like you're a good writer. Do you have anything else for me?" And I gave him a bunch of my other screenplays, and he tried to shop them around for me with no luck. And then finally, I was working on a screenplay called "Gimme Back My Stuff," a teen comedy, um, based on my first girlfriend dumping me and me trying to get my stuff back, including some of my comic books. Uh,
Alright.
and my contract with that agent was running out, and I remember him saying, he had just read "Give Me Back My Stuff," and he was like, "Mark, I don't know how to put this, but let me just say, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a great teen comedy. Give Me Back My Stuff isn't." And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Wow." I was devastated, but I was like, "Man, I really think this screenplay is funny."
Sure.
And you know what? I'm going to just like keep following the game plan that Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez laid out. So I just started sending it to production companies, even though I didn't have an agent. And a couple production companies loved the screenplay, and I was talking to them, and one of them was like, "Hey, I love this so much. I want to fly you out to Hollywood for the weekend. You can come stay at my mansion in the Hollywood Hills,
Oh, wow.
and I want you to realize, like, I'm the guy, like I'm the producer for you. I can tell you're in the comics. I produced the live action Fist of the North Star
Hmm.
movie, he was like, you and I, we have the same type of humor. I'm your guy. I just want you to commit to me. And I was like, yeah, he's saying all the right things. I signed with him. I went out to visit him, and he took me to his office. And he was like, hey, I want to introduce you to someone. And he took me like across the hall next door to this other office. And he was like, hey, I know you were talking to another production company. He was like, "This is them. I just want to show off and and like brag that I signed you."
Nice.
And I was like, "Wow, this is crazy." And there were so many times we thought that screenplay was going to happen, um, and for whatever reason, it just never did. And one day, the producer's business partner called me up and said, "Hey, Mark, have you heard from so and so?" And I was like, "No, I haven't heard in a while. I'm just waiting for my my re-option is about to come up. I'm just waiting to get that check." And they were like, "Oh, yeah, that's not going to happen. He took off with your re-option money and a bunch of other people's
Oh,
money."
dang. Oh, no.
So my time in Hollywood was up.
Yeah,
But by that time, the internet was more prevalent, and you know, all these publishers had their websites online with their submission guidelines, and I was like, oh, this seems a lot more viable now. And I was like, I like the aspect of not me, you know, I like the idea of me producing everything myself
sure.
and having someone get it out there for me. Whereas movies, I wrote it, but I need someone else to make it for me because I
Yeah.
have no idea. So uh, one of my best friends at the time, Dexter Weeks, we were working with another artist on this project, Coney Waves, and that's what we were working on, you know, back before the screenplay
Okay.
idea, but we just didn't know what to do with it. And I said, "Hey, I think we should revisit that. I think I know how to, get it to publishers." And we did, and we signed with a publisher, Arcana Studio, based out of Canada. And they published Coney Waves, and at the time, for an indie book, it was pretty successful. We did 3 volumes of it, and my work on Coney Waves sort of got me noticed by my hero, Rob Liefeld,
Okay.
and I started working for him. At first, he would just give me little jobs here and there. Like I worked on a brigade backup story for Image United, and one of the few Image United issues that actually came out. So I'm
Right,
happy that my story saw the light of day.
for sure.
Um, we did a brigade relaunch, and all the while he was telling me he wanted to bring back Evangeline, and he wanted me to be the writer of it based off my work on Coney Waves.
Oh, okay.
So it was just finding the right artist for that. And then once we found Owen Jenny, who was on Rob's message boards, and I sort of reached out to Owen and said, "Hey, we're looking for an artist. I'm just gonna, you know, take the initiative and hit up someone I like, and I'd like you to do some sample work." And he was like, "Is the script written?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Just send me the script. I'm gonna start drawing the book."
Oh, wow, okay.
So we sent Rob like I think like the first, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages, and
Wow.
Rob flipped out and he says, "Mark, you found your guy." And we did Evangeline for maybe 8 issues, and then uh, it got it got canceled. 8 issues at it for Image at the time was a was
Yeah, for
a
sure,
long
right?
run, and then it went on to be a web comic because we had a bunch of issues still in the can, and it ran on Keenspot as a web comic,
Oh,
and,
wow, okay.
we were getting like tons of views, like millions of views. People were really into it. I think Rob never had Keenspot take it down, so I think you could still read my full run of
Oh,
Evangeline.
interesting, okay, I'll have to check see if I can find that, yeah.
But from there, like Rob was working at the New 52 for DC, doing Hawk and Dove, and they wanted him to do more books. They offered him Grifter, Hawkman, and Deathstroke, and he was like, "Yeah, I can keep doing all these books, but I'm going to need some help." And they were like, "Well, who do you want to work with?" And he suggested my name,
Okay.
and DC went for it. So I started scripting Rob's Hawkman run, and having a great time. I worked with a dream team, Joe Bennett on art,
Oh,
Art
wow.
T. Bear as the inker, Rob doing stories, me on the script.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I got to visit DC's office, and Mike Martz, who was like the top editor there at the time, told me, "Oh, we love what you guys are doing with Hawkman. It's the best Hawkman yet." I was like, "Wow, things are going good."
Yeah.
Uh, they they uh, they signed us for like a 6-issue run. They send you like your pay vouchers in
Oh, okay.
advance. You fill them out. So we did 6 issues, and then when it was time to re up, they sent me. I think they sent me like 18 issues, because they Rob pitched the next story arcs, and they loved them so much that they were like, "All right, here you guys go." So
Hmm.
like we had this huge Hawkman crossover planned. uh People like were happy with what we were doing, and then I still kept my day job. I was working at a mortgage company at the time,
Oh, okay.
and I'm leaving my job, and my phone is like blowing up with notifications, like what's going on. So I go to Twitter to see what's happening, and the first tweet I see literally says, "Man, I sure hope Mark has a job after this." And
Oh, no.
I'm like, "What?" And I
Yeah.
have to, like, scroll to, like, figure out what's going on. And, that day, Rob just, very publicly quit DC,
Oh,
and,
okay.
he was having problems with, the editors apparently, and he just finally had enough, and he quit very publicly on, Twitter, and
Sure.
I found out online I no longer had a job. And it wasn't until hours later that my editor on Hawkman emailed me and said, "Hey, I guess you saw what happened. It was really nice working with you, but
Oh.
but
Well,
we're
I mean,
going in."
that's kinda nice of him to at least do that, but
Yeah, but so the story's not over there. I was devastated, because I was like,
Sure.
"Oh, this is like the dream." At least that's what I thought the dream was. You work
Mhm.
for the mainstream. That's what you want to do your whole life.
Right.
And a couple days later, the email hits me up, and it was like, "Hey, we were talking. We already bought Rob's stories. We liked what you guys were doing. We decided, let's just keep the team together. We're going to bring you back to finish those scripting those stories,
Oh,
and we're
wow.
going to double your pay for it." And I was like, "Wow, this actually is too good to be true." And it made me nervous. So I was
Sure,
like,
sure.
I'm getting to work right away. And I did like a story. I scripted a story like in a day, turned it in to get that paycheck. And it's a good thing I did, because like around that same time, Rob and Scott Snyder got into this like really heated Twitter feud
Oh, okay.
where Rob said, Scott Snyder doesn't sell Batman. Batman
Oh, I
sells
remember
Batman.
those headlines about that, yeah.
Yeah. And man, DC wasn't happy about it, especially Dan DiDio. So like 2 days later, I got a call from my editor. This time, not an email, an actual call. And the editor was like, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm doing great. I just turned in, the first Hawkman story." And he goes, "Oh, well, I hope you're doing great after this phone call." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Here it comes."
yeah, yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to let you go." And I was like, "Why? What did I do wrong?" And they're like, "Well, officially, I'm supposed to say miscommunication, but unofficially, they're not happy with Rob's, Twitter war with Scott Snyder, and since we can't fire him, unfortunately,
Oh,
we're
jeez.
firing you, who was Rob's recommendation for the
Yeah,
job."
yeah.
So that was my taste of mainstream comics, and it really
Sure.
left a bad taste in my mouth, to the point where I was like, "Oh, I'm just going back and working on my own stuff." And I started doing books with my son. Uh,
Okay.
uh, we did a book, Pizza Tree.
Yeah. Actually, I
It's
actually got that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, one of the best experience I ever had in making comics, making
Nice.
that book with him, doing a huge signing at San Diego Comic-Con, touring the country at different cons and
Oh, wow.
comic shop signing for that. I self-published that myself before I even like really knew about crowdfunding, and I printed a run of 1,000 hardcovers,
Okay.
and it just went around the whole country, like selling them. So it was a great time.
Yeah, that sounds
I,
like
I
it.
got I got to do it with my son. So Yeah, that was awesome. But it actually took me like a couple years to get back to that spot because like working for like DC and working for Rob at Image, I was concentrating on other people's projects
Sure,
and
sure.
none of my own stuff. So like that was like a big life lesson for me as far as my career. Like you always need to have like other projects in the works at all times because you never know when things are gonna like fall apart. Like, I had DC telling me best Hawkman yet. Couple months
Right.
later,
No no
they
work
want
for
no
you.
part of me.
Yeah, right? Oh, man. Yeah, that's a good point, though. Keep different, what's the saying? Irons in the fire so you can
Yeah.
work on different stuff in case something happens. But, alright, awesome. So, from there so, around that time, it you said it took you a couple years, from working on DC up until, like, you started doing your own things with, Pizza Tree.
Yeah.
Around that time from Pizza Tree, when you started working on your own stuff was when you started diving more into your own creative works and focusing more on those again?
Yeah, yeah. So Pizza Tree, we did that and we actually got some interest from Hollywood for that. So like I told my son, I was like, oh, we should get a little more serious about this. We created our company Haunted Pizza
Mhm,
that we publish our books through now. And at the time, one of my longtime friends in the industry is John Malin.
mhm,
John and I had been working on a book, Graveyard Shift, forever. Um, we were both fans of Rob Liefeld. We were both part of the Rob Liefeld message boards. And when I was working for Rob, I DM'd John at the time and told him about this idea I had. I said it's the universal monsters as superheroes,
m'kay, yeah,
and he loved the idea, and we started working on that. And the plan at the time was we were going to try to get a couple issues in the can and find a publisher for it. Well, i
okay,
was i was i was working for Rob at the time, uh and I showed him. I was working on, I believe, Evangeline at the time, and I showed it to Rob. Rob flipped out over it and like, I'm going to help you guys set this up at Image.
oh,
So
wow,
this is like 2011, I guess.
sure,
And he goes, but I'm going away. I have a business meeting. I'm going to meet up with Robert Kirkman. When I get back, I'm going to help you guys set this up. Well, the meeting he was having was what Robert Kirkman was bringing back the Extreme universe,
okay,
besides just Evangeline. Uh, so while he was there, somehow he decided, he loved Graveyard Shift, but he really loved John's artwork, and he wanted
sure,
John to be the,
okay.
the artist on on
Right,
Youngblood. So he came back and he was like, "Oh, Mark, I really feel like John's the guy for Youngblood, but I won't ask him without your blessing." I was like, "No, no, of course I'm not going to stand in John's way of this big break." So John was the artist of Youngblood for a while, and Graveyard Shift got put on the back burner.
okay,
But then John would have spurts where he wasn't getting any script from the artist, so he would go back to Graveyard Shift. And at one point, I said to Rob, I was like, "Hey, John and I have all this Graveyard Shift work. What do you think about running it as a backup in Evangeline?" And
mm,
he was like, "As long as it doesn't interfere with Youngblood, I'm fine with that." So an issue of Evangeline actually got solicited, and it says introducing new backup story, Graveyard Shift by Mark Poulton and John Malin. But the series got canceled before
oh,
that
okay.
issue ever saw the light of day. But the previews magazine exists with that solicitation, which
Oh,
I
interesting.
I always thought was cool,
Yeah,
just to prove
definitely.
like Graveyard Shift was out there way back in the day. But
Right,
but anyway, fast forward. John and I, we already had this book, Graveyard Shift. We had two completed issues of it, and John had just quit Marvel very publicly.
yeah,
The whole Comicsgate thing was starting, and he had just finished the Jawbreakers campaign, and he was like, "Hey, Mark, you know, we have Graveyard Shift. I think we should run it as a crowdfunder. Jawbreakers did crazy." He goes, "I know you're a quiet guy, so we can do this one of two ways. You know, you can release it on Indiegogo." And he goes, "And I'll support it. or we release it under my name on Indiegogo. And he goes, I'll go start fires everywhere. And I was
Okay.
like, well, if we're going to do it, we might as well go all out. We'll put it, you launch the campaign under your name and go create fires. And he did. And the
Yeah.
first book did like $100,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second book did $250,000. Third book did like $365,000. And it's like insane. It's like,
For
you
sure.
know, you all like I said earlier, you think working for the mainstream is your dream.
Right.
No, this is the dream. Like
Right.
your
Yeah.
your own characters, your own creations, you're your own boss. Like we're living the life. Like
Sure.
this is everything we always wanted, and now we get to do it. So yeah,
Definitely. So,
graveyards. Yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna kind of expound on that a little bit because I was gonna ask you, because I guess that would technically be your kind of your first crowdfunding forward,
So
right? Yeah.
I did some Kickstarters back in the day, while I was still like working with indie publishers, and they only made like $1,000 $2,000, but I was like ecstatic because
Sure.
like at the time I was like I just wanted to cover costs to make the book, never thinking, oh, you can make a living doing
Right.
this.
Right.
Even when I worked at DC, I always kept my day job.
Okay.
Um, but yes, this was like my real like serious about crowdfunding, where you have like thousands of backers. You need to really turn your house into a fulfillment center to
Sure. Yeah. Right.
to make this happen. And yeah, so it was like my first serious crowdfunding experience.
Right. Was there any I guess, like, hesitancy? I know you said already that you had been friends with John already, but like you said, it was a very kinda public, breakup with Marvel that he went through, and then, his first one was Jawbreakers with, your boy Zach Richard C.
Yeah.
Meyer, and so, obviously, he said he was gonna, like, stoke the flames to bring up Graveyard Shift and everything, but was there any hesitancy on your part, just kind of being out there because you had that mainstream work or any type of connections like that?
No, never. Like John's been my friends from way back. I
Sure.
knew like the things like that the mainstream and like Bleeding Cool were saying about him wasn't true. Like
Right.
I'm going to stand by my friend, and like if that means, oh, I'm now Comicsgate, then I'm Comicsgate. That's
Right, right.
I know the truth. Like I know John's a good person,
Yeah,
has a good heart, and yeah, I'm gonna stay by my friends. So like like I said, if we're gonna do this, let's go all in.
for sure.
John, you released this. You got the support. So
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, no,
Awesome.
never any hesitation. I will tell you, I did lose friends. I lost invitations to Comic Cons. I
Oh,
was
okay.
I was told by some local comic shops I was no longer welcome there,
Oh, geez.
and that's fine. You
Yeah.
find out who your real friends are
Yeah, that's
quick.
true. That's what they say when things get rough, then you find out who sticks by you, that's who your
Yeah.
real friends are right there. So, we won't dive into Graveyard Shift too much. You did cover, like, kinda how the idea came up, and
Yeah.
I guess you kind of approached John about it initially. But from Graveyard Shift, you've also done your own things where you've ran your own campaigns.
Yeah.
So, I guess would your first one, running yourself, like, after Graveyard Shift be the Sea Dog and Codename Killswitch?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So when Graveyard Shift was going like crazy on Indiegogo,
Mhm.
Clint Holinsky hit me up. I had known Clint from my days when I was doing Coney Waves um, back in the day. I also started working for the publisher Arcana Studio, and Clint was one of the artists that worked for us at Arcana. He did the Greatest American Hero comic book. We had the license for that, so I was familiar with Clint. I was a fan of his artwork, and he hit me up, and he was like, um, "Man, would you be interested in collaborating on something together? I,
Mhm.
I see how like Graveyard Shift is going." I was like, yeah, at the time. So at the time, my son and I were trying to come up with an idea to do something together again. after Pizza Tree because he got like really excited about like the success of Graveyard Shift, and he actually said to me like, "Dad, enough of this kiddie stuff. I want to do something cool like Graveyard Shift."
Oh, okay.
So at the time, he's still like real young. He's like, I don't know, maybe 9 years old. Well,
Okay.
he's a huge Dogman fan, so
Oh, okay, sure.
we came up with Sea Dog, and the joke is he's a dog that can turn into a fish.
Oh, alright. Nice.
So like, so when Clint hits me up, he asks if I have any ideas,
Mhm.
and at the time I say, well, the only idea I have right now is like this. I was like, I know it's crazy, but it's called Sea Dog, and it's about a dog who turns into a fish. And and Clint could have said no.
Right,
So,
right.
but he was like, okay, I have these characters called Codename Kill Switch. Can they be part of the book? And I was like, sure. But like since then, Clint has gone on to, and I like Clint, but he's gone on to like other shows and said, Mark pitched me this like really weird idea. And I was like, Clint, you could have said no, and I would have just came up with another idea.
Right.
But I honestly think the two ideas work together perfectly because Sea Dog is like this wild idea, but Clint's characters in Codename Kill Switch are clearly like fill-ins for other like
Sure.
90s characters. Like
Yeah.
we have our Deadpool, we have our Harley Quinn, we have our Spartan from Wildcats, our Thing character. So it's like I don't know. Like Sea Dog's almost in on the joke that he knows all these characters are
Okay,
like
yeah.
pre-existing characters. But like we did 2 volumes of Sea Dog and Codename Kill Switch, and I thought they turned out fantastic. Like Clint's uh, Clint has a good sense of humor, so like
Mhm.
the two ideas worked perfectly. But like Chase and I still talk. We got to do like we talk about how we have to do like this original Sea Dog book because like he can never take Codename Kill Switch into like show his friends
Oh,
because
sure.
like Clint loves to draw the women.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we still have to do that that true like Sea Dog origin book how we always envisioned. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
this was a good time working together.
For sure. So, obviously, with, like we already mentioned with Graveyard Shift, you had the all the eyeballs and everything, John Malin being John Malin,
Yeah.
to grabbing attention. Uh, with this one, and you're running on your own under your own name on Indiegogo. Were you doing anything different? Were you at this point in time were you trying to build up your channel like on YouTube or social media to kind of like because obviously Clint has a that it's similar style to John Malin where it's like actiony
Yeah.
and
It's a
extreme
real
kind of
90s, yeah, real
yeah
90s style. So no, I still hadn't like figured it out. Like during the success of Graveyard Shift,
hmm
like I saw these live streams happening, but I was like never a part of it. Like
okay
I was never asked to like be on a live stream. I was like, oh, all right, it's whatever. It is what it is.
sure
It wasn't until like Michael Bancroft, like I forget, it was Graveyard Shift 2 was closing out. And
okay
Michael Bancroft asked me if I wanted to come on the night it was closing out and talk about Graveyard Shift. And I was like, oh wow, yeah. People are actually interested in what
right
what I think about the book. But yeah, I hadn't really got into like my own like I had a YouTube channel, but I wasn't really doing much with it.
hmm
Um, so this was based off like just occasionally getting on some people's channels and promoting it when I could. I was still, it's still like a learning experience. Like I know the deal now where you need your own platform and you need to
sure
stream. But yeah, for me, this was still like real early on. I wasn't sure what I was doing.
okay
Um, so yeah, growing pains.
for sure, definitely. So, Switching or going forward from that, US Assassin is the book. Now you did the Sea Dog book, and then you didn't do the second one, right? You went from Sea Dog to the next one was US Assassin?
Yeah, so this campaign was actually like a second chance campaign because with
Okay.
Graveyard Shift 2, the big stretch goal was if we hit $170,000, every backer would get a copy of US Assassin, which was done at the time.
Okay.
Uh, Thinking like, oh, that's such a high number, we'll never gonna hit it. But we did like we did did
Right,
hit it
right.
on the final day.
Oh,
So
wow.
so that first US Assassin campaign where we made $5,000, it was
Mhm.
just a second chance campaign for anyone who somehow didn't get a free copy of it along with our Graveyard Shift books.
And then was there any okay, so I did not know that. So, okay. So US Assassin originally debuted, I guess, with the Graveyard Shift campaign.
Yep, yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. And so with I guess the question from that would be, um, you saw enough, you saw enough interest in the US Assassin to go forward and, have its own campaigns for the book itself, or was that kind of always the plan? You're like, even if it didn't do good, that was something you did want to try to put out there.
So US Assassin was supposed to be like a one and done graphic novel. It
Okay.
was based off my love of the American Ninja movies,
Mhm.
starring Michael Dudikoff, and I like watching them. I was wondering, like, what would American Ninja be up to today? Like, if he was still in service, like for the
Okay.
military, and I came up with this like American Ninja Dark Knight story.
Oh, okay.
And my buddy Mike McMahon was drawing it, and we had to get the book ready for print. And just as we're about to wrap it up, Mike McMahon said, "Hey, I have this idea to, for the ending where we introduce like a new character, so to leave it sort of open ended." Uh, for a sequel. And I was like, Mike, we've really got to get this book done. And he goes, well, I see this character as the Storm Shadow to US Assassin Snake Eyes. And he just like sold me on that sentence because G.I. Joe is my favorite, all time favorite comic book. It's what made me
Okay.
want to make comic books. And my mind just started like racing with the possibilities of, oh, US Assassin can be so much more than this just one and done book.
Right.
I was like, "Okay, draw it, but draw it quick because we gotta get this book to the printer." So we added the character Zero Face to the ending of US Assassin and saying that he had a past with US Assassin, and then, like, right after, like, Mike gave me that, like, little bit of, like, information of he's the Storm Shadow to US Assassin Snake Eyes, I
Okay.
went and wrote US Assassin 2 in a matter of days and said, once you're done, with these new pages for the first book, you can get to work on book 2. So I think we almost had book 2 done by the time we did our second chance campaign for US Assassin 1. And that just started laying the groundwork for this is becoming more of a GI Joe type book where US Assassin is slowly building this team that he's going to need for the eventual US Assassin 3 where they're given their biggest assignment. They have to take down Graveyard Shift.
Okay,
So
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't always meant to be like a series. It was supposed to be one and done, but
Sure.
once Mike sparked my interest with that with the new character Zero Face. Yeah, I never looked back, and now like we're working on US Assassin 4
Oh,
currently.
nice. Do you have a rough plan for, like, a grand arc? Or how many volumes you might wanna do, or is it kinda like a ongoing, you whatever idea hits you?
So after 4, I know what is in store for volume 5. We'll see from there, but I have a lot of plans for US Assassin, launching a US Assassin action figure line next year.
Oh, I think I've
Um,
seen some of those, you've posted on Twitter or something, those look really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's like coming full circle because G.I. Joe toys got me
Mhm.
into comic books, and now my comic books are letting me release my own toys. So people will be able to like grab their own set of prototype figures in the next USAssassin campaign, but the real toys won't come until next year. But yeah, my goal with those toys, I want like the coolest uh dog action figure ever, and I think we might have it with the bazooka dog. He looks amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool. All right. So going forward, so you kind of do have that franchise US Assassin, obviously Graveyard Shift, which would mention. So now you've kind of branched out and you're kind of like have all these other I don't know if you would call them series, maybe some of them to you are just kind of one and done and stories you wanted to get out of your system, but uh is that I guess my question is that the goal for doing these? You wanted to you have Viking Wolf, Black Owl, Hurley's Heroes, Loose Threads. You're doing Coney Waves right now, even though you did kind of
Yeah.
originally start with Coney Waves. Did you want to kind of just branch out more and get these stories out of your system, or before you get back into like a main series? Because I've heard artists and mostly writers though, because I've done some self-publishing myself, and a lot of writers say if you want trying to gain a foothold, you try to stick to a series because that will, and in some aspects it is true. You gain readers with that series, and then they kind of get invested and they want to read more and more. Whereas doing a bunch of different series, you kind of might have different genres or whatever. But what was your thinking going into that?
So my thinking was, every year there's always going to be a graveyard shift campaign. So that will be like the one steady uh constant in my work. Every year expect a new graveyard shift book, but the success of graveyard shift has allowed me to, bring all these other ideas to life. And
Hmm.
I'm always afraid like this crowdfunding boom will go away, and
Sure.
I'd really love to get all my ideas out there before 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 it all implodes. So yeah, I have my U.S. Assassin, and now U.S. Assassin has become something I love so much that, if Mike Abe is able to do it, I want a new U.S. Assassin book out there every year.
Okay.
Um, and then, I have these other books, like you said, Viking Wolf, Black Owl, Sea Dog, Hurley's Heroes. They sort of, fill in the gaps. So there's always something. It might not be a set schedule,
Hmm.
but I like to, like the lesson I learned, always have different, irons in the fire, just so you're never without something new for people. So
Sure.
yeah, but the constants are going to always be Graveyard Shift and U.S. Assassin.
Okay. So, are there any like tentative plans for sequels to any of the other ones, like Viking Wolf or Black Owl? Anything going?
Yep, yep.
Oh, okay.
Blackout 2 is currently being drawn. Viking Wolf 2 is delayed. The artist, one of the artists of the book, Matt Dalton, is having some issues that he has to take care of, but I really want to keep Viking Wolf, the IP out there.
Hmm.
So in the meantime, the idea I want to do is to do a haunted pizza universe crossover with
Oh, interesting.
Viking Wolf as the main character, um, where he just basically is Viking Wolf versus the haunted pizza universe, and every 10 pages would be drawn by a different artist of one of my books. So like maybe the first 10 pages are Wolf versus Writhe and Pain, and Chris Graves, the artist of Writhe and Pain, would draw that, and then he'd take on um, Black Owl. So Greg Paulson would be artist of those next 10 pages. So that's the idea I would like to do. It might
Sure.
take me a while to get there, but I really want to get Viking Wolf back out there for people because it got a great response. And I've been sitting on this Kenneth Rocafort Viking Wolf cover, and I was
Oh,
like, oh,
wow.
that would make a great cover for the reprint of Viking Wolf 1. So
Right.
yeah.
All right. So then, while you've been doing all these campaigns, how have you been? or what have you been doing? I know you have your own channel and you have a CG revolution going on, but have you been, I guess, what in general have you been trying to do, or have you really been trying to do anything to kind of build up that audience and find new readers, or is it just mainly just kind of by putting up more books?
So when I started getting serious about my channel, John Malin told me, I should do like a wrestling show because I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Mhm.
And he was like, "You already got the comic book readers. Bring in the wrestling fans." And I thought that was solid advice. And for the longest time, I was doing a show, La Pod Gods,
Mhm.
which I love doing, and I would still do it. Except my co-host he's a teacher. He got busy with teaching, and
Okay.
but it wasn't really getting any traction as far as views. And I would have the people who would come in and watch it realize they're not really wrestling fans. They're just fans of my work. And
Okay.
they want to support me. And one of them even DM'd me once and said, "Hey, man, can I give you some advice? Maybe start doing some shows about comic books." And I
Hmm.
was like, "Yeah, I mean, that makes sense."
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't the advice I was given, but it really does make sense because my fans are all comic book fans. They want me to talk about comic books.
Sure.
And you know, Chris Graves is my workout buddy, and we were working out. I was like, "Hey, I got this idea for a show. Would you want to like start streaming with me?" And then I included Mike in it, and then eventually my friend Sean Aaron. So we do CG Revolution every week, usually Wednesday 7 p.m., and that gets great views for us. And then recently, I just started doing uh, YouTube Shorts,
Okay.
and like the views I get on YouTube Shorts are insane compared to like what my live streams get. I
Yeah.
was like, wow. And I look at the analytics, and it brings me in a completely different audience, younger. Uh, 50% of the viewers are female, which you don't
Okay.
get on the
Right.
on the
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
streams. And I was like, oh, instead of like I was trying to chase a new market doing the wrestling, I need to concentrate more on these shorts because I do shorts about my comic books and my action figures, and it gets
Okay.
a lot of comments and a lot of views and a lot of likes. So I was like, there are people interested in this stuff. They just weren't um, ever. Uh, they've never seen it before because they
Right.
weren't in our like niche community.
Right.
So
Exactly.
like YouTube Shorts, I feel like is a like an undiscovered uh like outlet
Oh
for us
yeah.
as creators.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. Actually, I don't want to say I gained 100 subscribers, because I just passed 300 subscribers, but I gained a good chunk between 200 to 300 doing YouTube Shorts. I was just doing just quick 1 minute 30-second videos of like
Yeah.
speed draws of what I'm drawing or different
Mhm.
different characters, and yeah, definitely YouTube Shorts can definitely get the views. I didn't even think about checking out the analytics, but that is definitely something I should do to see which ones spark more interest. But yeah, I agree with that. If
Yeah.
someone's not doing YouTube Shorts, definitely, niche it in a little bit more to whatever your channel is focused on. And yeah, that because I guess from what all the YouTube gurus are saying, that's where a lot of the focus on YouTube, the company, is right now. They're like really promoting those shorts, so it's really gaining that wide audience.
Yeah, no, it's something I honestly just started doing a month ago. So like I was like the to see like how the analytics have changed the demographic of my channel is crazy. It went from I think it was like 98 or 90% male
Okay.
to uh to 55 male, 44% female. 1% I guess doesn't identify.
Right.
but
Right.
but but yeah, it's crazy. And the age range of my viewers, like my most popular, basically all of my subscribers at one point were just, or views were coming from like the, I don't know, 35 to 44
Sure.
demographic. It's always joked in Comicsgate is made up of 100% like 42-year-old men,
Right, right, right.
which
I've heard
the
that.
analytics were supporting that
Mhm.
in my YouTube. But now it shows that like the biggest age group of my that are viewing my stuff are like 18 to 34-year olds, which
Okay.
is crazy. Like, because that's not who's checking out
Right,
those live streams. It's
right.
all because of these YouTube shorts I'm doing. And in 1 month, I've gained like 30 new followers strictly from doing the YouTube shorts. So it's like, oh wow, I want to keep I want to keep going with this to see where it gets me.
Yeah, definitely. How just a little bit further into the shorts, 'cause I really do think this is a good topic for anyone
Yeah.
who's trying to grow their channel. How often do you post, for those YouTube shorts?
I'm posting like a few every week. I would love to get to the point where I'm doing it daily. It's just
Okay.
finding the time and finding the content. I was just fortunate enough that I had a bunch of books come in and the action figure prototypes to come in that I could like put out a bunch of videos, and that's usually all it's about, is like my books or the action figures. Occasionally, like I'm into action figures, I collect action figures,
Mhm.
so I tried. Oh, I'll do a 60-second fig hunt going to Target to see if I can find anything, and I put that up, and it did okay, but it's not doing it as great as like the you know books coming from the printer doing an unboxing of
Sure,
them, or
sure.
like the prototype 360 turnarounds and stuff. But yeah, I would love to get to a point where I have a new short every day.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's what I did when I saw the most traction on it. I was doing one of those, I don't know if you've seen them, but they the art challenges they do every month, like Inktober or stuff like that. They do
Mhm.
them for different months, and I was doing one in January, and that's when I saw the most traction because I wasn't posting every day, but at least 3 or 4 times a week, and that's yeah, definitely saw the most traction there. And it also that's when it kinda dawned on me, like, I think sometimes we get so caught up when we're trying to build our platforms on mostly on YouTube, where it's like we see how everyone else is doing it, and it's always live streams.
Yeah,
And like I said in the beginning, like I'm on the West Coast, it's really hard to get people to do live streams, and I have a day job myself, so sometimes I get home at 9 o'clock and it's midnight on the East Coast.
yeah,
So, but if you look at other avenues like shorts, and then I realized the last crowdfunding comics pod I did was with Clint Stoker,
mhm,
and we were able to go live on that. He's on the West Coast, but it didn't. Obviously, I don't have that big of a platform, so I didn't get very many live views. But it's already almost up to I think 30 views. So for me, I find that really good because it means people are going to it
yeah,
later on, even if they didn't catch it live.
yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, we all start somewhere.
Mhm.
Um, like even I have like maybe 1,200 subscribers, but for a live stream views, they max out like at maybe 150. So
Okay.
you're retaining about 10% of your subscribers for the views. So it seems like you're on the right path.
Yeah, and I think from listening to other people and from what I've seen too, like 10% is that good mark even on, what do they say, the views to likes ratio. If you get 10%, if you have like
Yeah,
100,000 views but 10,000 likes, then it's 10%, and that seems like it's a good ratio, like that you're having a good amount of people who are still engaging and watching and whatnot.
yeah,
Awesome. So, I guess in the home stretch here, we'll touch on well, first, before we get into Coney Raves, Writhe in Pain. You have
yeah,
your mailing list right now. I wanted to ask about this because you did something I've only really well, he didn't do it through Etsy, but Joe M. Sontag did his book before he released
yeah,
it on Indiegogo. He did that ash can through Twitter, and so with Writhe in Pain, you did yours through Etsy. And I guess what was your thought process through that? Why did you do it that way, and was it
yeah.
successful?
Yeah, so Sean Aaron and Joe Sontag are both my friends. They both do art and stuff.
Mhm.
So I guess Sean did it first with his Type One preview, and then Joe did it with Reaper Destroyer.
Yeah.
And Sean kept saying, "Oh, yeah, you guys should do a preview book for Writhe and Pain." I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna just put it as a store." on my store. It's an Etsy store, but it's linked to the Haunted Pizza website.
Yeah.
It just seems simpler than the jump into my DMs and, and
Right,
order
right,
a
yeah.
copy. I feel like I'm a busy guy. I can keep track of it more
Sure.
if it's in my store and I have those orders listed and I can hit like completed. So yeah, it did great, and people are getting their copies, and I just wanted to create some buzz. We're going to launch this book in June, um,
Okay.
and I'm like really excited about this book. I honestly think it's my best book
Oh,
ever,
wow.
and I say that that might be something I say a lot. Like, well, I say that about like my writing, but
Sure.
like overall as a book, I feel like this might be my best book ever. Chris only like really started drawing like for a few years. Like he showed me his work from a couple years ago to today, and it's like insane. You wouldn't think it was the
Wow,
same
okay.
guy. And I don't know, like I almost feel like this book is fate. Like
Okay.
I di- I didn't really know Chris was an artist when he and I started working out together.
Mhm.
Um, I had started about a year ago, serious like about getting in good shape, and I started going to my gym, and I would check in uh at on Facebook at my gym just to like to keep myself like I don't know, responsible or whatever.
Sure, sure, yeah.
And Chris saw me checking in every day and just DM'd me and said, "Hey, I see you going to the gym every day. I train bodybuilders if you ever want to work out." And I you know went to his Facebook page, and I saw that he was like this big jack guy. I was like, "Oh, I could probably use some of his advice."
Right.
So we started working out, and it turned out that he did fan art for Graveyard Shift that we published, and
Oh, wow.
I never put like two and two together, and it turns out like Chris is this amazing artist, and he was talking about this book he wanted to do. And this was like after months of us working out together,
Mm,
and I think I hired him to do like some pieces for USAssassin, and he was talking about this book he wanted to do. He goes, "Oh, but I think I need a writer for it." And I'm just waiting for him to ask me because by this point we're like good friends.
okay.
And he asked someone else, and I was asking him how later on. I was asking him how it was going. I said, "Well, if things don't work out, because it didn't seem like he was getting like script or whatever that he needed."
Oh,
I was like,
okay.
"Well, if things ever don't work out, I would really be interested in working on this with you because I love the look of the characters." And for whatever reasons it didn't work out, and he asked me to do it, and I was like, yeah, I would love to work with you. And he asked me if I wanted to like see any of the old script from the other person. I was like, no, I have
Right.
I don't really, no knock against that person's work, but I don't want any influences
Sure.
from their work. Actually, just from the look of these characters, I have these ideas already in place, and it wasn't even called Writhe in Pain. The book was called something else,
Oh, okay.
but there was a character named Writhe, and I was like, oh, it's just like so easy. It's so there. Would you
Right.
would you consider changing the name of the book to Writhe in Pain? It's about two characters. One's Ride, the other one should be called Pain. It just sounds like a 90s comic book.
Right,
and
yeah.
and he was like, "Yeah, you're right. You're right." And then like everything I've done for that, he's like on board. So it seems like we're both we both have the same ideas in mind for the book. We have the same likes and influences. Clearly, Chris was a big Spawn and Todd McFarlane fan,
Sure.
and I grew up like loving those books. And we have this cool Spawn tie into our book that we have variant covers, and we have them from Kevin Conrad, Kevin Keene, and Chance Wolf, all creators who have worked on Spawn. Um, so
Nice.
I think even if you're you never heard of Writhe in Pain, but you probably heard of Spawn. So
Yeah,
to
yeah,
just
most likely.
maybe it'll bring some more eyes onto the book. But
For
yeah,
sure.
Chris is just killing it with his artwork, and everyone I show it to, you know, seems to love it. And like even like some of my colleagues who I haven't shared pages with, but they just see the stuff online. They've reached out and said, "Yo, I think this is going to be your best book yet." And I was like, "Oh
Oh,
wow,
okay.
thank you."
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's one thing. So, how did you find that? I guess why did you decide to uh do it, even if you don't do it like how they did it through DMs, asking for orders that way through Etsy, and not just put it like a maybe like a quick campaign up on Indiegogo just to do
So
that what limited number or whatever.
So I had created my website
Mhm.
earlier, maybe back in October, and I did it myself, which I'm super proud of because I don't really have any like
The
computer
Haunted
skills.
Pizza, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
I created using Wix, which my son, my son recommended to me because he watches YouTube so much. He gets
Sure.
advertisements, and I was talking to him. I was like, I need someone to create a website for me, and he just like went into the ad. He goes, "Oh, you could build one yourself using Wix.com." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "It's an advertisement I see all the time." So I checked it out and I built it myself. Really easy to do, and I linked the website to my web store. You can get
Okay.
T-shirts, you can get books, and I wanted to like drive business to my web store. So I was like, instead of doing these campaigns, let's do you know a website exclusive. So I made the preview book a website exclusive. If you go to the hauntedpizzallc.com, click buy our books,
Mhm.
you'll find you at the time you would find the Writhe and Pain preview book. Um, so yeah, it's just to create more interest in the website and to the
Okay.
all the books we were offering there, and it
Sure.
worked because people weren't just buying the Writhe and Pain preview book; they were buying copies of Sea Dog,
Mhm.
copies of U.S. Assassin, stuff like that.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, that's a I didn't even think about that. I was thinking maybe like to a different way to drum up interest, which obviously it is, but yeah, definitely getting the word out about, you know, basically your home pub,
Yeah.
where you keep everything instead of having to rely on Indiegogo, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Yeah, definitely want to draw those readers and that attention to where they can find it where you have control, you don't have
hmm
to worry about it being shadow banned or the website going offline for whatever reason.
Yeah,
What
yeah, and it's also great, like just to get people like people are like flipping out when they see Writhe and Pain, but maybe
Mhm.
they're not aware of when they go to the website, they'll check it out, and maybe they never knew about Blackout, or people are still like this is crazy, but like my most purchased back issues are Sea Dog, which
Okay,
I found surprising because it's more humor based and not like as dark as like Graveyard Shift or U.S. Assassin or Viking
sure.
Wolf, like my more popular campaigns. But people keep discovering Sea Dog and seem to like him, so that's awesome.
Yeah. I came to the party late, so I only learned about the Sea Dog and Codename Killswitch later on after the campaigns had already finished.
Yeah.
So I haven't got it, but there is something about the character. He's just like he looks cool and actiony, but at the same time, it just looks fun. So I don't
Oh
know.
yeah.
That's where my attention gets drawn to. Before we move on and finish up here with Coney Waves, how did I know you got Flip Gordon, and you've actually done a few other want to say licensing deals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how did that come about?
So when Mike gave me the idea about doing more U.S. Assassin and
Oh,
it
sorry,
becoming
real
more.
quick for anyone who doesn't know, Flip Gordon is a pro wrestler. So
Yep.
yeah, going back
uh,
to the wrestling talk a little bit.
yeah. So you know when Mike gave me the idea to like the GI Joe inspiration for a U.S. Assassin, and that's the direction we were going to go for the book. I
Mhm.
was like, man, I really would like to have GI Joe had Sergeant Slaughter. We need our own Sergeant Slaughter. I actually reached out to Sergeant Slaughter and talked to his people for a while, but
Oh
he
wow.
was working with Action Force,
Oh, okay.
which they have a toy line and a comic book line. So it's like, okay, Sergeant Slaughter's out of the picture. I was like, you know what? that's old school. We need new school. We need a current wrestler. And I was a huge fan of Ring of Honor, a huge fan of Villain Enterprises, which
Mhm.
was a villain faction with Marty Skrull and Flip Gordon, who at the time he was like this super baby face, and then he
Mhm.
turned heel and joined Villain Enterprises and became the mercenary. And he had the gas mask. He has a real life military background. I was like, oh, he is perfect. Um, so I just DM'd him on Facebook. I sent him a personal message. I told him about US Assassin. I showed him some artwork for it, and I was like, "Hey, we would like you to be the Sergeant Slaughter of US Assassin." And he was like, "This is exactly what I'm looking to do. I'm in. You know, what did you have in mind?" So I offered him this, you know, license license licensing deal, and he agreed to it. So he's part of the U.S. Assassin team. Then I told him, hey, we're working on some action figures. Um, I know how to make and crowdfund comic books. Action figures are a new thing for me.
Sure.
I can't offer you the same deal, but I would love to have you as part of the line. Can we come to some sort of agreement to get you involved in this action figure line? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. The mercenary needs to be a part of it. So we got him as part of the action figure line. I showed him as the pictures for the prototypes coming in. I was showing him. He was so excited. Then I got the actual prototype in hand. I sent him pictures of that, and he's like, he's on cloud nine. He's so excited about this.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, he's been great. Uh, he's done um, appearances at like local indies that I've ended up going and not just like setting up a haunted pizza booth there to sell US Assassin, but I like ended up like sponsoring the wrestling event. So it was
Oh,
like
wow, okay.
US Assassin presents. So that was cool. That like as a longtime wrestling fan, that was like, you know, one of the coolest moments to like have that US Assassin logo on a wrestling event
Sure.
poster.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Alright, so I guess we'll finish up then with Coney Waves, kinda coming full circle there.
Yeah.
I guess how did this come about to come back? Did you always wanna come well, most likely you did since you're publishing it, but, you know,
Yeah.
d w
So Coney Waves, the book I started my career on, I was never like 100% happy with the Coney Waves books we released.
okay,
At the time, my first book I wrote, working with an artist. So it was my buddy Dex, and it was another artist, Steven Sestilli. And that was the artist that Dex interned for when he was at the University of the Arts. So Steve's, a little older than us, and I was young at the time. So Steve saw the book in one way, and I saw it in a different way. Like I
mm,
saw it kind of as like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and he saw it like I don't know, like a B movie, like I don't know. He loved Hammer films and like
okay,
B movie babes, and
kinda
it
like a cult classic type thing where it's like
yeah.
we it
Well,
sounds like
it's
Buffy sounds like more a little bit more fun a little bit, even though there's
like
might be some dark elements to it.
the best way I could say like to describe it is like it was almost like a war between sexy versus slutty, and
Okay,
I'd rather it be sexy and fun and stay away from the other
okay,
direction. So this, with the success of Graveyard Shift, US Assassin, my other books, I was like, oh, this is a possibility. We could finally do Coney Waves the way I always wanted. I had
sure,
been working with Renzo Rodriguez on projects, one of my favorite artists to work with. Dexter was on board, one of Coney's co-creators, and I even asked Steven if he wanted to be part of it, but just in a different uh, a different role, like doing covers and the Making Waves pinup book that's part of that. I wanted to be
Oh,
like a
okay.
collection of Steve's paintings because he's an incredible artist. We just we have a different vision in mind for Cody for Cody Waves,
Sure, sure.
and I'm not the young writer I was back then, where I agreed to things I didn't really
Oh, okay.
I really didn't agree with. I just didn't want to cause any waves.
Sure, sure.
No pun intended. But he decided he didn't want to be part of the book, and that's okay. I still have like his artwork from years ago, so people will get to see some of Steve's past work. But like me, Dex, Renzo, the book looks fantastic. I had Mandy Summers helped me with the book. At the time, the book was with Arcana Studio. It was in development as a live action television series, and I got
Okay,
to write the screenplay for the pilot episode. So, as part of this reboot, I knew I always loved that screenplay because that was like my first attempt at what I always thought Coney Waves was. And I wanted this reboot to be based off that screenplay, but I'm like so busy with Graveyard Shift and all these other properties. I
sure.
gave Mandy a copy of the screenplay and was like, "What do you think about this?" And she was like, "Oh, I love it. I think it's great." I was like, "Could you adapt it into a comic book script for me?" So she broke
Hmm,
down the screenplay into a 56-page graphic novel, and like it's a dense read. Like she packed those pages in with a
okay.
ton of panels. Like she really put Renzo to work on it. Because as a writer, um, I usually do like 1 to 5 panels per page, 5 being the
Okay,
most. I don't like going more. But she went in there, and there's some pages, there's maybe 8 panels,
okay.
like me, I wouldn't have been comfortable as a writer doing that, but she didn't have a problem, and it turned out great because Renzo's art, those pages look fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so that's how I was gonna ask about the how the Mandy Summers, connection came up.
Yeah.
So you kind of approached her to kinda break down your screenplay.
Mhm.
Are you, hopefully planning to do more of these or just kind of a one shot based on your screenplay?
I would like to do more as long as the fans are into it and
Mhm.
the crowdfunding campaigns do well. Yeah, so you should definitely expect more Coney Waves.
Awesome, yeah. Yeah, this art by Renzo is great. He did some stuff for Viking Wolf, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
Viking Wolf, him and Matt Dalton, were the interior artists of that,
yeah.
and, Renzo's also done, like, a bunch of, covers and pinups for me for, USAssassin, and Renzo also has, like, a different art style, like a kid's book style that he can
That's
do.
right.
He did, Bazooka Dog, for
Mhm.
me, and, yeah, he's a secret, well, I say he's a secret weapon, but more and more people are finding out about him because
Yeah,
he's drawing everyone's book now.
right. I love that, rendition he did of USAssassin and Bazooka Dog. Like, my stuff is all ages, and that's the kind of stuff
Uh-huh.
I focus on, so whenever I see anything like that, I'm all over that, and yeah, the way he basically broke it down into almost an animated style looked really good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Renzo, I think, drew my all-time favorite picture of Bazooka Dog, where he has, like, all his, bazookas and cannons and bombs out, and also, like, a little Slurpee, a hand holding a Slurpee cup. Mike and I joke that if the book does, or the action figures do well, we need to add an attachment that has, like, the Slurpee cup for Bazooka Dog.
Oh, okay. That would be great. Almost like a little add-on like Ethan's little chicken bucket for
Yeah.
Cyberfrog.
Yeah, definitely. But, yeah, if you like Renzo's, like, all ages, style, he and we haven't started any work on it, but there's character designs. We have this idea for, a creator-owned project together that is like
Okay.
DuckTales meets John Carpenter's The Thing, that the
Oh,
characters
wow.
look incredible. Like, it's just finding the time, but, yeah, I definitely wanna do that with him. We've been talking
Sure.
about it for years.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, for everyone listening, Coney Waves is up right now. As far as the campaign is still going live. You planning on doing in demand for this one?
Yep, in demand, and like a lot of campaigns out there, it's unfortunately shadow banned by Indiegogo. So I'm gonna
Sure.
probably after next 16 days are up, I'm gonna probably place it on a couple other crowdfunding platforms to just maximize my audience.
Yeah,
It's something
definitely.
I've stayed away from, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, I feel like I have to at this point.
I feel like a lot of people should at least consider it, just
Yeah.
especially how who knows why all the shadow bans are going on, but they are. So, it can only help you to, like, try to find other platforms to at least gain, some more eyeballs on it, so.
Yeah, no, I keep saying like Coney Waves is like strong minority female lead,
Mhm.
female creators working on the book. Like this should be like the book that they would want to
Right, right.
like show off. But no, it's shadow banned. Not only is that shadow banned, but the Writhe and Pain mailing list is shadow banned. So
Oh, that is really, yeah, when I was talking to Clint Stoker about that, I was going through his projects, and I forgot to pull up his newest one before he had recently launched it, and
mhm.
yeah, his it was for the mailing list, and I couldn't find that either. Anyways, I had to go to Twitter and pull the link from there just to find the mailing list. So yeah, that's aggravating. So yeah,
Yeah.
the link for Coney Waves. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I was just yeah, it's frustrating right now, especially like when you've had so much success on their platform and you've made them a lot of money. Like my
Sure.
properties combined have crowdfunded over $1 million. That's a good chunk of money for them,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, it, they don't seem to
Right.
care.
Evidently not. But yeah, the link will be for Coney Waves in the description down below and in the show notes. Yeah, definitely go and check out this very cool concept. And I guess to end it, what I've been doing is trying to get some last few tidbits of knowledge for both good and bad, based on kind of what you've seen. And change this here real quick. There we go. Yeah, kind of just what you've seen as far as crowdfunding campaigns. And what I've been asking everyone uh, is what is one tip or maybe something that comes to mind. So you see something that you've done yourself that works really well for crowdfunding campaigns, or you've seen on other campaigns that has worked really well, and you've either wanted to implement it, or maybe you've already implemented it in your own.
Well, I would say, like, don't just try to get on live streams. Be part of the chat too. Like,
Sure.
becoming part of the community is maybe more important than like being a creator in the community. And that's something like I didn't pick up for a while. But once I started like jumping into the chats of other people's shows and just like making a becoming a familiar face there, I noticed not just my campaigns doing better, but the views on my channel because people enjoy interacting with you in the chat. They come over to your channel and be a part of your chat. So
Hmm.
that uh, something we talked about the YouTube Shorts. That's sort of a new thing for me.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of potential in there. So I'm going to keep mining that to see how that does. And then don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of creators, new creators, have hit me up in DMs and asked me um, advice on like printing stuff like that. Even like
Mm.
some established pros, want to know. Like I have no problem. This community that we're part of isn't like the regular comic book
Yeah,
creator community, which I was a part of, and it was really every man for themselves. This is very welcoming and very helpful. Like
for sure.
I'll help anyone that I can. So don't be afraid to like reach out and ask someone like, hey, who do you use for this, or what would you do in that situation? And also like, don't be afraid to ask to come on to people's channels to promote your stuff. Like for the longest time, I was waiting for invitations, and then someone was like, "Oh, you just ask them, and they'll say yes." I was like, "Oh,
Right.
okay, that's how it
Yeah,
works."
definitely. Yeah, I've heard that advice before as far as, you know, basically making yourself seen,
Hmm.
in the chats, and whether live streams, or even if it's not a live stream, if someone posts as a video, leave a comment or something, because
Yeah.
that kind of, not only are you supporting those creators who are doing those live streams and videos, but you're kind of getting yourself out there. it is self-serving in a way where people are like, "Oh, this guy, he wants to interact with us. He wants to connect and, be part of the group and get his name out there too." So it definitely helps on that front. I agree
Yeah,
with
one of
that.
the most genius marketing campaigns I've seen in recent years was the creator of Roach Balls, who would just jump into chats for like months and just super chat Roach Balls. And I was like, what is
Did
this?
he do oh, I know, I can't remember his name, but yeah, I've seen that campaign and I remember that, but I didn't know he did that.
Yeah. And then when the campaign launched, I was like, man's a genius.
There it is, roach balls. Okay, now I get it. Alright. So, on the flip side of that, is there anything you've seen or you've done yourself, that you're like, that should not have they shouldn't have included that, or they maybe don't do that the next time?" One thing, as I used in an example, is I've seen, some creators use, instead of just writing the text in their campaign, they put one of those graphics and they try to make the font really fancy or whatnot, but it's really hard to read those. So anything like that or something like that that you might have seen?
Well, so that can be a mixed bag because some people they set up their campaign page and it looks so amazing. I'm
Sure.
like, oh, I wish I had the skill to do that, but but I don't. So I have to like do it my way and manually type in the words instead of creating these beautiful graphics. But no, I would say have realistic goals in mind.
Sure.
Some people their first campaign they have a huge goal and maybe they do need that money, but for an unproven talent, I think it's going to be hard to hit that.
Yeah.
If you're asking for like five figures and you're someone with no track record, you might want to reconsider that. Maybe make that 100-page graphic novel, break it down into some single issues, and start there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for me at this point, like I've said it before, but I've been lucky enough that I'm able to make a lot of these books in advance. So I don't really need when I do these campaigns. I'm just hoping to like recoup some of the money I already
Okay.
put down. So all my campaigns have that $5 goal. Obviously,
Sure.
they cost way more to to make than
Right, right.
$500. But I'm making these books regardless because I love making comic books and I have these stories to tell. So
Sure.
hopefully, I can break even and make a little more money to fund the next project too. And it's worked out for me so far.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. I agree with that too. That's my book is like an all ages kids book, The
Hmm.
Amazing Red Bee. My initial plan for it was it's going to be about 90 pages, the first story
Yeah.
basically. And I wanted to just release it as a graphic novel. And the more time went by, I will be launching the campaign on Kickstarter next month for it. But the more time gone by, I was like, I'm gonna need a lot of money for this to do a 90-page graphic novel. So what I've decided to do instead is break it down into 3 issues so I can keep my campaign funds a little lower, try to gain more traction that way, build up an audience that way, and that way, yeah, I can keep the goal lower and hopefully succeed that way and win-win, hopefully, this plan.
Yeah,
So
and then
definitely good advice.
if the time comes and you can do a volume two, then you can collect those single issues and release your first trade. So
Yeah,
and
cool.
that's work that's already been paid for. So you just have to make the printing cost. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a solid
exactly.
plan.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks again for joining me today. Like I said, everything will be in the links in the description and the show notes. Any last words before we get out of here?
Just thank you for having me on, and let me talk about Coney Waves, and thank you to everyone who has supported my works over the years. You made this possible that I have a company with my son, and we have this incredible library of books.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. You think working for the mainstream is like the be all end all, but no, this make what could be better than making comic books with my son.
Yeah.
So
Right.
thank you
Definitely.
everyone who has made that dream come true.
For sure. Definitely. Alrighty. Well, I will see you guys in the next episode. And alrighty.